She gets on my nerves. Who does she think she is? I was better off without her as my manager. I sat there for a moment, taking it all in. Have you ever felt like someone in your team resents you as their manager, or maybe you've worked for someone you couldn't stand but never said it out loud? Hidden resentment can be subtle or overt, but either way, it has a real impact. On this channel, I have talked about the influence line managers have on their teams. Today, let's zero in on the employee's emotional response to the manager. A McKinsey study revealed that workplace relationships account for 39% of employees' job satisfaction, and relationships with management in particular account for 86% of worker satisfaction with interpersonal ties at work. And so even if this employee is the one resentful, whatever its cause, it will have an effect on the job satisfaction, team dynamics, and the productivity at work. It reminds me of that statement, drinking your own poison. I recently read something about the Harvard Business Review stating that the impact of the employee's behavior, a toxic employee's behavior, has such a ripple wave effect, 1.59 times more than we think. And so we definitely need to do something when we start to see this to resolve it. I do need to make it clear that this video isn't about making everyone like you. Sure, it's a nice bonus, but the goal here is to understand what resentment looks like, why it happens, and your role as a leader and how to manage this effectively. I'll even share my own story of hate that I experienced as a manager to bring this to life. Resentment can show up in various ways, and here are some ways it is expressed. For subtle signs, there is withdrawal or avoidance. This is where the team members go quiet, disengage in meetings, or avoid one-to-ones. They have cold demeanors or straight faces during interactions. And other passive-aggressive behavior is where they make snide remarks, miss deadlines, or forget key tasks. Overt actions include challenging authority, openly questioning decisions or policies with a tone that is combative and has sour responses. Gossiping, where you're talking negatively behind the person's back all the time, but in this case, it takes it to another level that is quite malicious, is also another example. Another example is undermining efforts. The person is showing up late to meetings without apology or switching off their camera in virtual meetings. Have I covered the majority of behaviors? What have I missed? Let me know other behaviors in the comment section. Let's get into why these happen. What causes the resentment? One reason is because employees may see management as the other group, which can create tension or mistrust. This is what the social identity theory states, that you categorize people into groups, and so the manager being the manager falls in a hierarchical structure that makes the team member suspicious. This, I feel, can easily be managed where in time trust is built or earned. Another reason is jealousy or disappointment. Being overlooked for a promotion can spark feelings of unfairness. What if they applied for the same role but you got it? Or maybe you were once friends and now the new dynamic feels uncomfortable. Third reason is perceived fear or bias. Preferential treatment can erode trust. The Institute of Employment Studies shared a paper on this, stating that although what is fair is broadly subjective, the employee's perception about the fairness of workplace procedures, interactions, social support, or outcomes falls under the notion of organizational justice. And so when you play favorites, even small actions like consistently praising that one person can fuel resentment. Another cause for resentment is that employees may misattribute feedback or policy enforcement as the manager out to get them in the form of personal bias rather than organizational necessity. I have mentioned this as the attribution theory in a previous video, so maybe the employee may also feel excluded or undervalued who may not look or sound like their peers. The resentment may also be because of unclear expectations. Broken psychological contracts, that's the unspoken agreements about the role and expectations, can leave the employee feeling betrayed. I remember a friend once shared that she joined as a senior manager with the expectation that she would oversee a particular project, which was one reason why she applied for the job. But soon after joining, it was handed over to someone else, and it left a bitter taste in her mouth, which led to her not trusting her manager who had promised her this. Poor leadership is another factor, let's face it. Sometimes the problem is you, the manager. You may have said something, acted away, or you have a character that needs working on. So if that is you, then take the chance to reflect and grow. And then there's some other unknown reason that they are the only ones who can share. Honestly, even I saw someone who reminded me so much of another person that I had worked with, and that person was terrible to work with. So when I joined an organization, because of that uncanny resemblance, it made me tread very carefully before I opened up in my relationship with this person. But any of these scenarios can apply in different degrees of resentment. Let me share my story. Several years ago, I managed a team of 6. It was a mix of roles, admin, facilities, health and safety. 5 were already there. Some had been there for over 10 years, and I recruited an administrator to complete the team. Things started great, as they usually do. There were lots of learning, sharing, and getting to know the organization. Within 3 months, I had a better grasp of the roles and the external standards we had to meet. That meant understanding not just the work, but also the dynamics of the team. I started ensuring that we were all accountable in our different areas of work, while providing the support that they needed. That's simple, right? Well, not quite. Let's talk a bit about the team, and I'll start with Max. Max was in facilities. He was the nicest to me, super helpful, always checking in, cracking jokes that had everyone laughing. Max was a team charmer, and the medical staff adored him. Then there was Zola. Zola was always rushing, always frowning, and occasionally delivering work that was not up to the health and safety standards. The other team members were great team players, so nothing to expand on. With Zola, it took a few months of one-to-ones feedback before things improved. I could tell that she wasn't thrilled about my diligence. She was probably coasted for years, but eventually she got the memo and things got better. Now Max. Max was a different story. Behind all that charm, he was chronically late, rarely finished his tasks, and often vanished for hours after a 1-hour lunch break. At first, I thought, okay, let's set expectations and offer support. But as time went on, it became clear that Max was, shall we say, resistant to change. I had to put him on a performance improvement plan to address his time management and work completion issues. And let me tell you, the Max who was cracking jokes and charming to everyone vanished. The man did a complete 180. Meetings became icy, resentment, you could feel it in the air. Things hit a peak during his 6-month review. I was midway through explaining the lack of progress, referring to daily tasks and weekly check-ins, when he stood up mid-sentence and shouted, red in the face, that I was unfair and just wanted to make his life miserable. Then he stormed out of my office. Now, I am a petite person. At that time, I was also much younger and newer to management. I'm pretty sure that Max thought that he could charm his way around me, or failing that, intimidate me. But I was not allowed to let the standards slide. As he stormed out, I overheard him muttering to someone. She gets on my nerves. Who does she think she is? I was better off without her as my manager. I sat there for a moment, taking it all in. This was the first for me as a young manager. After composing myself, I documented everything that had happened and sent it to my line manager. My manager, thankfully, was supportive. Apparently, Max's happy-go-lucky demeanor masked a temper which previous managers had avoided confronting. I decided to address the incident as misconduct under the disciplinary policy then. However, I also wanted to handle this strategically. I was still within my first year of joining this organization, and I wanted to show that I'd done everything I could to support him. So the next day I requested a meeting with Max. I explained that this would be an informal warning and made it very clear that this behavior would not be tolerated, and that if it happened again, the disciplinary policy would apply. Max showed up at the meeting, apologized, and left without making eye contact. For the next 3 weeks, he was quiet. It was forced hellos, no eye contact, and avoiding me whenever possible. There was some improvement in his work, for the first 2 weeks, and then it dipped again. I flagged my concerns, but before I could do much, Max called in sick and stayed off for 3 weeks. In that time, we brought in a temp who turned out to be fantastic. And then in the third week, Max handed in his resignation. So this story highlights the paradox of leadership. It's not about being liked by everyone, and your focus as a manager should be on creating a positive work environment and ensuring the team delivers on their work, as well as fostering trust and respect. If they end up liking you, then great, but the focus here is on doing the right things and not focusing on people pleasing, else nothing will get done. Resentment often signals deeper organizational issues. As you can see here, I had joined in and was trying to manage a team that had gotten away with a lot in the past. So it's important to view things objectively and address the root causes. So how do we manage this type or level of resentment? 1. Know your role and the policies of the organization. Understand your role as a manager and familiarize yourself with the workplace policies to stay calm and in control. And if the behavior goes beyond accepted professional conduct, speak to HR for support and address it sooner rather than later. Next is one-to-one conversations. Use emotional intelligence to read the room and also create psychological safety for open dialogue. Get to know your team's perspectives. Schedule a meeting to understand their behavior and use that time to agree or clarify the ways of working. I frequently say that it's important that you know your team. Which leads on to the next point of clarifying expectations. It's also important to revisit team goals and roles to avoid misunderstandings, and also be transparent about decisions and explain your reasoning clearly. Apply transformational and inclusive leadership. Build trust with all employees, not just the ones who you click with. Have team building activities to create a group that knows and cares about their collective success. And inspire your team by focusing on shared values and long-term goals and not these personal conflicts. Finally, give it time. Depending on how extreme the behavior is, you can give it time because time heals, right? Just ensure that the professional behavior expectations are set and hopefully the ice thaws. I conclude with this main point. As a leader, not being universally liked is the price of making tough decisions, but fostering trust and fairness ensures that your leadership remains effective. So what's your story? What have you experienced as a manager facing resentment from a team? Share your story below and let's learn from each other. Also, as a reminder, I have the Mayday Manager workshop coming up soon, and so join the waiting list. You will find the link in the description box. I hope you found this useful, and until next time, make progress with care.